Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models and Memories Weekly, episode 18. Models and Memories is a show about nothing, and it is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week, and I end every episode with a story. Now you might think to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 YouTube videos a week and you live stream every single night. How could you possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. I don't know if there's much else to talk about this week besides Games Workshop's updated intellectual property guidelines. Bananas! So Games Workshop has been working on their new thing called Warhammer Plus, where they're coming out with some of their own animations. They've been purchasing animations from other people and bringing them on and paying them some money to create animations for their new platform. But there's been rumblings that they're gonna go after people or they're shutting people down. And there's been a little something happening, and there's been other things that are maybe blown out of the water, but now it seems like they've finally laid their cards out on the table, and they've updated a line in their infringements section on their website. Their intellectual property guidelines, they go through all of the usual things, fan fiction, books, magazines, and all the normal stuff you'd expect. Don't try to make money off of it, don't use their pictures and images, but the new change under their infringements, where they say we have a zero tolerance policy in respect to infringement on our intellectual property rights, and these include, counterfeits, imitation models, recasting and 3D printing, illegal downloads, normal stuff that I think we could all, agree with, I suppose. But then, fan films and animations. Individuals must not create fan films or animations based on our setting and characters. These are only to be created under license from Games Workshop. This is interesting. This is wild because number one, I think this could really have benefited from some legalese. This isn't a legal document, this is a document meant for laymen to read and understand, but the word fan film is a very charged word. They could have just wrote film. But fan film, you are 100% zero tolerance. Do not create fan films is a remarkable statement. I think almost anything out there would know better than to put those words together and have a big old no in front of it. That is shocking. The word fan film, I'm sure, is not a legal definition. I think if they really should have tried to come up with something a little less just bam, right at the heartstrings of us hobbyists. But I'm also just wondering how on earth they're gonna enforce something like this. Because sure, you can content claim stuff, but there's been a bunch of animations recently where people are really, really dedicated and they're working on it and they have Patreons devoted to helping them create this work. But the majority of fan films are just someone having fun. They made a thing, they published it, and they're gone. They did it years ago, they had fun. I mean, are they checking their email regularly for cease and desist letters from Games Workshop? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. How can you stop it? Are we gonna see all of the current producers pivot either to not 40K related things or strictly 40K parody? Because parody, I'm sure you can still get away with. And that could be really, really funny, but it is a shocking turn of events because it really feels like they don't have to do this. And another reason why it feels like they don't have to do this is because on this same page, it talks all about how to create fan artwork. Individuals may create their own artwork, drawings, and designs based on our characters and settings, but these must not include artwork or images copied from official Games Workshop material, be non-commercial, not be publicly distributed except for non-charged digital distribution. It has to be made clear that it's unofficial, and it has to not be prejudicial to the goodwill, reputation, integrity of Games Workshop. So yeah, it can't be like porn. But all perfectly average things that you'd expect, because that's fan artwork, cool drawings, paintings, that sort of stuff. But is there really a difference between that stuff and a fan animation? I mean, if I drew a whole bunch of pictures, let's say I decided to draw a series of paintings of a space marine, and let's say that if I put these paintings into a collage and rapidly cycle through these paintings so that it might look like a marine is walking around and doing some business, Does that cross the line from the perfectly acceptable fan artwork into the completely unacceptable fan film territory? Like, what is the exact cutoff line? Because I almost want to do this. It'd be so funny to try to create something that would ride that line. Because clearly, it's the same thing, right? I'm not a lawyer, I don't know anything, but clearly fan artwork and fan films are the same thing, and it feels like, and Games Workshop is definitely not helping themselves out by offering no explanation of anything ever, but it feels like the reason that they're putting the kibosh on this is because they want to make animations and want to somehow scrub all the competition away? Maybe? Because they do make paintings and pictures that you can buy. There's a website that's really hard to find where you can buy expensive prints of Games Workshop's art, but they didn't have to shut down every single other artist to do that. But if they're gonna start publishing their own animations, they do have to scrub the internet of other people's animations. It's very weird. It'd be really interesting if somewhere in this hobby, in this YouTube 40K sphere, if there was like a lawyer, like a copyright attorney who could maybe shed a little light on this, but I am shocked. I have no idea what's going on. And it's a little sad and it's a little depressing, but it's also interesting. As content, viewing this as content, I'm excited to see what happens because, you know, Games Workshop's probably gonna send out nasty grams to a bunch of different people, and some of them are gonna fight back, some of them are gonna roll over, some of them are gonna get nasty, some of them are just gonna be dead accounts that don't see the email anyway. I mean, I am kind of pumped to see what's gonna happen because of this. So, in other news, I finished some models. I finished this Genestealer Cult Icon Ward, and I'm really, really happy with them. It didn't take too much work. But I did do some subtle changes from my old style that I think looks really, really great, and I'm gonna carry it on through my Genestealer Cult army. My Genestealer Cult army is an army that I absolutely fell in love with, and then it just kind of fell away. I think it's because the models are so hard to paint, and when I played with them in 8th edition, my games went so badly that it damaged some of my love of the cult. But they are really, really interesting, and since my painting abilities have upped since then, I'm much more comfortable with faces and hands and blends, and I really think that Genestealer Cult lend themselves to a lot of experimentation. And so I'm really excited. I have so many Genestealer Cult models, and I have so many to get through, so many to update and fix. But I'm really starting to feel like I'm getting a little pumped for this army again. And who knows? In 8th edition, I play Space Marines and Necrons, not the most tactical armies in the world. They're tough, they have pretty good shooting, you kind of just march them forward. Not so much with the Genestealer cults. I know I used to cult ambush everything, which would give me an amazing turn 1, and then I'd be wiped, because as soon as it's their turn to fight me, and my toughness 3, 1 wound, 6 up save bodies, there would be no recovering. But I really like this model. And another thing about it is I'm happy that I'm slowly moving away from the Games Workshop style of being perfect and moving into a little bit of artful sloppage. And actually, the model that I really, really feel like I pushed this was this mini, whose name is Nayam Shi Murad from a Blackstone Fortress expansion. I bought her because I was scrolling around eBay, as I am often one to do, and I saw this model for $6 shipped, and so I needed to have it just because it's so badass. But if I were to paint this maybe a year ago, or just not be brave, not painting bravely, I probably would have painted the cloak leather and made the gun silver, but I decided that I was gonna try something, and I painted warm colors, magenta and yellow on the guns and the servo skulls, and then I painted cold blues, silvers, and greens on the body. And throughout the entirety of this paint job, I was like, I don't like this. It's completely out of my comfort zone. I don't feel like it's turning out. Why would the guns be glowing yellow? But after a while, I finally got to the point where I'm like, okay, this is sort of making sense. It feels a little bit like in a video game, your character creation, like you have your cool skins on your guns and you have your own unique army patches on your guy. But I actually kind of dig it. I don't know if I'm gonna paint more models like this because it's not really my style, like neon, but I had fun doing it and I think I made some really interesting discoveries with it. This is not a model that I'll ever probably play with, and so it definitely gave me some freedom to try some things out, but I think it really worked out. It's still not one of my favorite paint jobs, but it is interesting, and I think the skills I learned on this are gonna carry forward into more painting. More typical stuff of what I usually do, like this Gene Sailor Cult icon word. Because one thing that has taken me forever to learn is to focus on the things that are important. Like this little holster on him. Back in the good old days, I would have base coated that sucker with chocolate brown, and then done probably a wash, and then a highlight of Mournfang brown, and then I would have picked out all of the edges with a brighter brown, and then a few edge highlights of some bone white to really get it to look exactly like it does on the Games Workshop web store, and it would not matter, and it would take a lot of work, and it would not look as good as just painting it brown and just a little bit of wash. Because no one's looking at the holster, everyone's gonna look at the banner, and at the face, and at the gun. You know, the weapons and the face, that's what you need to spend your time on. Everything else, you can kind of let be as good as it needs to be. And that's pretty subjective, and it takes a long time to learn. I think in the bell curve that is learning to paint, you start out and it sucks, but then you slowly have to learn your way to perfection. And then once you can, and perfection just meaning the paints are in the right spots, they're not spilling over onto each other, edge highlights are on the edge, not in the middle of a panel. Everything is clean and neat. That's perfect, essentially. And then once you're at that level, you can start to make artistic decisions of, well, maybe instead of shading something with black, I'll shade it with purple, and that will create a better effect. Or you can say, I don't care about his boots one bit. I don't care if they're black primer with just one dry brush. That is plenty, because no one cares about the boots. I need to spend all that time on the face. And I think those sorts of decisions are really when your paint jobs come alive. Whenever I'm looking at models online, and even when I'm at the friendly local game store and I see models that aren't painted beautifully, I still see the magic in them when people are able to find the moments, the correct moments to paint, the ones that make your models come alive. Because I have models that I think are painted very well and look very boring. But I've seen other models that are just washes and dry brushes, and I'm like, that is a cool model. You have found the essence of that figure and you have brought it out with painting, which is really the goal of every paint job. But I think more and more recently I've been able to find it, and hopefully I will be able to really understand it, distill it, and then pour it out into all of my YouTube videos for you guys. So these models are what I worked on this week, and now this show is called Models Memories Weekly, and that is because it is about the relationship between models and the memories they contain. I finish every episode of these with a story, and behind me on my YouTube set are all of these lovely objects, and these are my stuff. And there is a reason for each and every one of them, and this week I will talk about this guy. This is probably one of my newest LEGO acquisitions, and that is because LEGO has done a very clever thing. Forever now, LEGO sets have been steadily going up in price because they are using more and more parts to make things look better. But the tricky thing with LEGO, in my opinion, is you don't want things to look good. You want them to look good enough and be made of LEGO to play with. And I think that this model is the perfect balance. I had a TIE Fighter growing up. It was the blue one. It was like the original TIE Fighter. It was made out of like 40 pieces, and it was great. I had so much fun playing with that. And this is LEGO's newest attempt at bringing the cost down. This TIE Fighter, I think, was $40, and that's half of what the last TIE Fighter they made cost, which is crazy. Who's buying a TIE Fighter for $80? 40 is still a little high, but it's so cool looking and neat. I mean, look at those wings. I mean, I don't know, there's a lot of new pieces here that I don't recognize, but this looks like what a TIE Fighter wing is supposed to look like. It's really cool. It has flick fire missiles that are lost now. I'm never finding those again. But these can pop off so that you can, you know, it exploded. I mean, so much fun. They're doing a similar thing with the X-Wing too, with the good guy ships, where the last one I think was like $100 and the new X-Wing is 50, which is great. This stuff shouldn't be crazy expensive, it's toys. And what I like about Lego is that they're toys, they're neat. I kind of like seeing not only the Legoification of Star Wars vehicles, but the toyification of Star Wars vehicles. I think TIE Fighter wings are supposed to be a bit bigger in proportion, but these are plenty good enough. I mean, holy moly. This thing looks snazzy. And another reason why I was able to allow myself to purchase this, because this is dumb, is because I collect Imperial minifigures. I know I've talked about this before. This is my bag of Stormtroopers. A lot of these were collected in middle school, a lot in high school. I got a lot from eBay, and I collect a little bit of Lego, but I've limited it to only Star Wars and only Imperial things. And one thing I've totally learned about myself in this process, and basically the same thing happened with 40K, is I really like stuff that has a little bit of a history to it. It really jimmies my jangles that I have like 2011 Stormtroopers and 2020 Stormtroopers, and you see these subtle evolutions, how their printing has changed, how their armor has changed over time. That sort of stuff really tickles me, and it's the same sort of thing that I love about collecting Space Marines. I have a large Space Marine army, and inside of that army is tons of different kits from different years. I have a bunch of metal kits, I have old ass plastic kits. You've seen plenty of them on this channel. And so whenever I go down the collecting rabbit hole, I always love collecting stuff that has a little bit of a story. And for me, this TIE Fighter definitely has a story. And another reason that Lego has been on my mind of late is because I have been thinking about all of the different things I would like to do combining Lego with 40K. I think this all started actually, I saw somebody made a beautiful Lego Land Raider, and it was super gorgeous. This is an old idea I've had for a while now, where I take Legos and I build a Space Marine army, because a Lego guy is about the same size as the Primaris Space Marine, and I can use the Legos to build their vehicles, especially since the Primaris vehicles are so big, and it'd be interesting to see if that ends up being more expensive than a real 40K army. I think it would have to be cheaper, because, I mean, Legos are pricey, but if like you buy them secondhand, they're not as pricey, but sometimes bricks are hard to find, so they go up in price. It'd be interesting to see. And then obviously to play a game, I mean, can you imagine a battle report where one of the armies is made of Legos? That is an idea I've had on the back burner forever. And another thing I would love to make is, I would love to build some camera equipment out of Lego Technic and Lego Bionicle, where it's not so much bricks, it's more the tubes and pins. Because I have all of these different ideas for they have a bunch of gears. And you know, Legos have great tight tolerances, and I think it'd be really simple and easy to build different rigs that can do different things. We now have a much lighter camera that we can use to film things, and that would probably be acceptable to put into Lego. And I'd really like to give it a try. I think it'd be interesting. But if you want to see us do really interesting and really dumb stuff like that, the best way to do it is to become a member of our Patreon. Over there, you'll gain access to some behind the scenes, voting on what models I paint live here on YouTube, a live hobby hangout every week, and more. And you will be helping us on whatever crazy ideas that we come up with that aren't safe or smart, but could be a lot of fun to do. And I would love, because I've seen, you know, motorized dollies and stuff, and they're not complicated machines. I feel like they could be very easily turned into Lego. And the great thing about, you know, doing it as Lego, because I could design it and then 3D print it and stuff, but that would suck because I'm never gonna get it right, and I'm just gonna have 100 prototypes that are all janky and barely work. But at least with Lego, if something's not working, I can change it on the fly, and the pieces are always correct, except for the pieces I break, inevitably. And so I think I'd love to build some things that maybe move up. I have this idea of an arm where it spins in the opposite direction of the model. I have so many ideas for things that I would love to try, and I think I'm gonna. But that is why Lego has been on the brain, and this Lego TIE Fighter is super awesome. If you are a LEGO fan, but you've held off because you should not be buying LEGO ever again, this TIE Fighter is pretty cool. If you have fond memories of playing with your blue TIE Fighter from back in the day, I think this is a pretty cool model. Also, I wouldn't have been mad if this was blue. I didn't mind the blue at all. Obviously, gray is more accurate, but does everything have to be gray? I mean, half the reason Star Wars ships are gray is just because it looks good in space. I think that this model would actually look pretty badass in blue. So that is what I worked on this week, and it brings this episode of Models and Memories to a close. Now it's time for the real star of the show, this week's EOB Complete submissions. We put out a challenge to our community to send us before and after photos of their recently finished models to be immortalized in our videos. If you want to join in the fun, you can submit a before and after photo of your painted mini to our Discord server, which you can find in the description below, or you can post it to Instagram with the hashtag EOBComplete. Without further ado, let's look at and get inspired by what the folks have finished this week. 1000 Sun Space Marine by CJ Boy, an Assault Intercessor by Get Goofed, a Invictor Tactical Warsuit by Ryan Y, an Intercessor Space Marine by Brood Lappin, a Genestealer Cult Orc Hybrid by Coec 15324, a Contemptor Dreadnought by Lord Prime, a Terminator with Cyclone Missile Launcher by Y Deneric FH12, a Blade Guard Veteran by Dexstar, a Primaris Lieutenant by Strutton, a Terminator with Thunderhammer and Storm Shield by Brucifer, some Soldiers by Bagpipe Man, some Plague Marines and Poxwalkers by Kenny, some Plague Marines by Meg, a Terminator Space Marine by NordVPN, a Scout Sergeant Blowout by Delwyn Wooland, a Gaunt from the Ghosts by Chukka, some Space Marines by Protech, a Plague Marine with Plague Sword by Zero, a Chaos Dark Apostle by Crayon Commander, an Imperial Knight by Ed Chimera, an Adeptus Custodes by The Most American Citizen, a Fancy Man with Cloak by Ed Scar, an Armiger Warglaive by Septothrope, a Dark Elder Archon by Titania, and this by The Brave. Congratulations to everyone for a job well done. It's no small feat to get paint on minis, and you all should feel really proud. Nothing gets the hobby juices flowing like finishing a project when we all thank you for sharing your work, motivating us and the hobby community to paint our plastic. Thanks for sharing.